This channel exists because you listen. Subscribe, leave a like, and tell me, where are you now? The snow fell heavily over Harrington Hall when Lady Genevieve received the letter that would change her life forever. Her fingers trembled as she held the paper bearing the Pembroke seal. 23 years of preparation, of patient waiting, of moulding herself into the perfect wife for Nathaniel Pembroke, Duke of Westmere. And now, 1 week before the official announcement of their engagement, this letter arrived. "My dear Lady Genevieve," it began in the Duke's elegant script, "it is with deep regret that I must inform you of a change in circumstances. After careful consideration, I have come to the conclusion that my heart guides me in another direction. Lady Rosalind and I have discovered an affinity I cannot ignore. I ask for your understanding in this delicate matter." Genevieve read the words 3 times before their meaning truly penetrated. Rosalind, her younger sister, barely 18, with her golden curls and crystalline laugh. The girl who had always admired her, who had always called her Jenny in that sweet voice. The drawing-room door opened and her mother, Lady Margaret Harrington, entered in a green silk dress. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Genevieve, darling, the flowers for the announcement ball arrived from London. The white roses you selected are absolutely stunning. The Duke will be—" "There will be no ball, Mother." Genevieve's voice came out surprisingly steady. Lady Margaret stopped mid-stride. "What do you mean, no ball? The announcement is in 1 week." Genevieve extended the letter. She watched her mother's face lose all colour as she read. "Rosalind?" The word emerged as a horrified whisper. He chose Rosalind. Apparently, his heart decided differently. Genevieve managed to keep her voice neutral, though her nails dug into her palms beneath the folds of her dress. Her mother sank into a chair, the letter fluttering to the floor. 20 years. 20 years preparing you to be Duchess of Westmere. Since you were 3 and he was 5. Since our parents signed the agreement. An agreement that apparently meant nothing. Genevieve turned to the window, watching the snow blanket the gardens. "Where is Rosalind?" She went to visit the Pembrokes 3 days ago. Said it was to help Lady Pembroke with the ball preparations." Lady Margaret's voice shook. "Oh, God, she knew. She must have known." The door opened again, and Lord Henry Harrington entered, his normally jovial face carrying a sombre expression. "The messenger found me at the East property." He held an identical letter. "So it's true. The Duke will announce his engagement to Rosalind at next week's ball." "In front of all London society," Lady Margaret murmured. "Everyone knows Genevieve was supposed to be the bride. The humiliation will be—" "I won't attend the ball?" Genevieve turned, her decision already made. "I won't stand there as a spectacle for society to observe and gossip about." "You must go," her father said firmly. "If you don't appear, it will seem you were destroyed by this. You must go with your head held high and show them you don't care." "But I do care." The words escaped before Genevieve could stop them. "I spent my entire life preparing to be his wife. I learned everything a duchess must know. And he discards me for my younger sister, as if I were nothing." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had shed enough tears in the past hours, alone in her room. 3 days later, Genevieve stood in Harrington Hall's library when she heard the sound of carriages arriving. She knew who it was before the butler even announced. Rosalind had returned home. Her sister entered the library like a burst of spring wind, her cheeks pink from the cold and eyes shining. But when she saw Genevieve, her expression shifted to something between guilt and defiance. "Lady Genevieve," she corrected coldly. "I believe you forfeited the right to use affectionate nicknames." Rosalind bit her lip. It was a gesture that used to seem charming, but now only irritated Genevieve. "It wasn't planned. You need to believe that. When I went to help Lady Pembroke, Nathaniel and I simply talked, really talked, and we discovered we had so much in common. He made me laugh. Lady Genevieve, he saw me, not as an obligation or an agreement, but as a person." "And me?" Genevieve's voice emerged low and dangerous. "Was I just an obligation? 20 years of my life, Rosalind. 20 years sacrificed to become the perfect wife for him, and you simply stole him. I didn't steal anyone. You can't steal a person's heart. He never loved you, Genevieve. He merely accepted the arrangement because it was his duty. But with me, it's real." The words cut deeper than any blade, because Rosalind was right. Nathaniel had never loved her. In all their formal interactions over the years, he had always been courteous, proper, but never warm. Never looked at her the way he apparently now looked at Rosalind. "Leave," Genevieve said quietly. "Leave the library and don't speak to me again unless absolutely necessary. Jenny, please, you're still my sister. I don't want this coldness between us." "Then you shouldn't have done it." Genevieve turned to the window, ending the conversation. She heard Rosalind's hesitant footsteps retreating, the door closing softly. Only then did she allow her shoulders to drop, the mask of indifference to crack. But she didn't cry. She was too tired of crying. The Pembroke ball occurred exactly as planned, but with a different bride. Genevieve watched from afar as Nathaniel announced his engagement to Rosalind. London society reacted with polite shock and whispered gossip. Everyone knew it should have been Genevieve. She maintained her mask perfectly throughout the evening, smiling politely, accepting veiled condolences with grace. But inside, she felt shattered. That's when he appeared. Lucian Ashcroft, Marquis of Silverton, was a figure who inspired both fascination and fear in London society. Tall and broad-shouldered, with hair black as night and eyes of stormy grey, he had a presence that made people instinctively step back. There were rumours about him, dark rumours. His first wife, Lady Helena, had died under mysterious circumstances 3 years ago. Some whispered he had pushed her down the stairs of Silverton Manor. Others said she had gone mad and thrown herself. The truth remained a mystery, but the Marquis had become a figure avoided by society, and now he was crossing the ballroom directly toward Genevieve. "Lady Genevieve," his voice was deep and slightly husky, "may I have this dance?" She should have refused. Any sensible woman would refuse, but Genevieve was tired of being sensible, tired of doing what was expected. "Yes, Lord Silverton." His hand was large and warm as he led her to the centre of the ballroom. She could feel all eyes upon them, the whispers increasing in volume. "You know you're causing a scandal by dancing with me," he murmured as they began the waltz. "I no longer care about scandals, Lord Silverton. My reputation is already ruined anyway." Something passed through his grey eyes. Understanding, perhaps. The Duke's discarded bride. I imagine that's painful. No more painful than carrying the reputation of a murderer, I presume. His fingers tightened on her waist slightly. "You're direct, I like that. And you're dangerous, everyone tells me so. And yet you're dancing with me." "Perhaps I'm dangerous now too," Genevieve said, surprising herself with her own boldness. "After all, I have nothing left to lose." Lucian studied her for a long moment, his grey eyes seeming to see through her carefully constructed mask. "May I make a scandalous proposal, Lady Genevieve? It seems this evening is made of scandals. Marry me." Genevieve stumbled in the dance step. Lucian held her firmly, preventing her from falling. "You're insane." "Possibly, but consider. You need an escape from this humiliation. I need a wife to silence the rumours about my supposed murderous nature. It would be a mutually beneficial arrangement." "An arrangement?" she repeated bitterly. "Like my former engagement?" "No. This would be honest from the beginning. No pretense of love. Just two individuals seeking to rebuild their lives away from the scandals that haunt them." The music ended, but Lucian didn't release her immediately. Their eyes met, and Genevieve saw something in his that she recognized. Loneliness. Deep and devastating loneliness. "I need to think." "Of course, but don't take too long, Lady Genevieve. Society has a short memory for scandals when a new one arises, and our marriage would be the perfect scandal to make everyone forget your current situation." He released her and walked away, leaving Genevieve alone in the center of the ballroom, her heart beating erratically. 3 days later, Genevieve sent her response to Silverton Manor. She accepted. The wedding was performed discreetly in a small chapel on the outskirts of London, just 2 weeks after Rosalind's engagement announcement. Society was shocked. Lady Margaret wept. Lord Henry tried to dissuade his daughter, but Genevieve was determined. "Better to be the Marchioness of Silverton than spend the rest of my life as the woman who was discarded by her own sister," she told her parents. The ceremony was brief. Lucian was dressed impeccably in black, which only accentuated his dark appearance. Genevieve wore a dark blue silk dress, refusing to wear white. She wasn't a virginal bride entering a marriage for love. She was a woman making a strategic choice. When Lucian kissed her hand after the ceremony ended, his lips were surprisingly soft against her skin. He didn't kiss her on the lips. There was no need to pretend romance where none existed. The carriage that took them to Silverton Manor was luxurious, but sombre with dark velvet curtains. Genevieve watched the landscape change from London to countryside, each mile taking her further from her old life. "Do you regret it?" Lucian asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "Not yet." "Do you?" "Ask me the same question in a year." Silverton Manor emerged at dusk, a Gothic structure of grey stone against the darkening sky. It was intimidating and beautiful at once, surrounded by wild gardens and dense forest. "Welcome to your new home," Lucian said, as he helped her descend from the carriage. The staff was lined up at the entrance, all with carefully neutral expressions. The housekeeper, Mrs. Blackwood, a middle-aged woman with greying hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. "My lady, it's an honor to have you at Silverton Manor. We've prepared the East Wing for your quarters." "The East Wing?" Genevieve looked at Lucian. "I thought you'd prefer your own wing," he said calmly. "This is a marriage of convenience. There's no need for us to share quarters." Something in his tone stung, though Genevieve couldn't say why. Wasn't this exactly what she wanted? A practical arrangement without emotional complications? "Of course, thank you, Mrs." Blackwood led her through long corridors lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. The manor was even more imposing inside than out, with high ceilings, dark wood paneling, and an atmosphere that felt heavy with history and secrets. Her chambers in the East Wing were surprisingly beautiful. A large four-poster bed dominated the room, draped in deep burgundy velvet. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. A sitting room adjoined the bedroom, complete with a writing desk and cozy armchairs near a fireplace. "Lord Silverton instructed us to prepare everything according to the latest fashion from London," Mrs. Blackwood said. "If there's anything you need, simply ring." "Thank you, Mrs. Blackwood. It's lovely." The housekeeper hesitated at the door. "My lady, if I may, Lord Silverton is not the man the rumours paint him to be. I've served this family for 20 years. He's a good man who suffered a terrible loss." Before Genevieve could respond, Mrs. Blackwood curtsied and left. Alone in her new rooms, Genevieve walked to the balcony. The gardens below were wild and beautiful, roses growing untamed alongside lavender and jasmine. In the distance she could see the dark line of the forest. This was her life now, Marchioness of Silverton, wife to a man accused of murder, far from everything she had known. And, strangely, she felt more at peace than she had in weeks. The first days at Silverton Manor passed in a strange sort of limbo. Genevieve saw little of Lucian. He took breakfast early and spent his days managing the estate or locked in his study. They shared dinner each evening, formal affairs where they made polite conversation about innocuous topics, the weather, the estate, London gossip. But there was something else beneath the surface, a tension that crackled between them whenever their eyes met, an awareness that made Genevieve's skin tingle when Lucian's hand accidentally brushed hers passing the salt. On her 5th day at the manor, Genevieve decided to explore. Mrs. Blackwood had given her free rein of the house with one exception. The West Wing was locked and off-limits, which naturally made Genevieve curious. She wandered through the portrait gallery, studying the Ashcroft ancestors. They all had variations of Lucian's striking features, the strong jaw, the intense eyes, the air of barely controlled power. She found the music room, where a beautiful pianoforte sat covered in a fine layer of dust. The library was her favorite discovery, a 2-story room lined floor to ceiling with books. She could spend years here and never finish reading them all. It was in the library that she found the portrait. It hung above the fireplace, clearly in a place of honor. A young woman with pale blonde hair and delicate features smiled from the canvas. She wore a white dress and held a single rose. Her blue eyes seemed to follow Genevieve as she moved. Lady Helena, Lucian's first wife. She was beautiful, ethereal almost, the kind of beauty that belonged in fairy tales and poetry. She was painted 3 months before she died. Genevieve spun around. Lucian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. It's your home now. You're free to explore." He walked into the room, his eyes going to the portrait. "She was 19 when we married. I was 25. It was an arranged match like ours." "Did you love her?" The question escaped before Genevieve could stop it. Lucian's jaw tightened. "I tried to. She was sweet, gentle, everything a wife should be, but there was something broken inside her, a darkness I didn't understand until it was too late." He turned away from the portrait, facing Genevieve instead. In the afternoon light streaming through the windows, she could see shadows beneath his eyes, the lines of pain etched around his mouth. "The rumors say I killed her. That I pushed her down the stairs in a fit of rage. Did you? No. The word was flat, final. But I couldn't save her either. Perhaps that makes me just as guilty. Before Genevieve could respond, he walked out, leaving her alone with the portrait and a growing sense that there was much more to the story. That night, Genevieve couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Lucien's words, his expression when he looked at Helena's portrait. Around midnight, she heard footsteps in the corridor outside her room. Heavy, measured footsteps. Lucien's footsteps. They stopped outside her door. Genevieve held her breath, waiting. After a long moment, they moved on. Where was he going at this hour? Curiosity won over propriety. Genevieve slipped out of bed, wrapping a robe around her nightgown, and followed. The footsteps led to the west wing, the locked wing. She watched from the shadows as Lucien produced a key and opened a heavy oak door. Light spilled into the corridor as he entered, and she caught a glimpse of what looked like a bedroom before the door closed behind him. Helena's room. It had to be. The next morning, Genevieve received an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Blackwood announced him with clear disapproval in her voice. "The Duke of Westmere is here to see you, my lady." Nathaniel. Her heart lurched, though whether from anger or something else she couldn't say. He waited in the drawing room, dressed impeccably in riding clothes. His golden hair gleamed in the morning light, his blue eyes tracking her as she entered. "Genevieve." He stood, taking a step toward her. "You look well. What do you want, Nathaniel?" He flinched at her cold tone. "I wanted to see how you were faring. This marriage happened so quickly I was concerned." "Concerned?" She laughed, a sharp sound. "You discarded me for my sister and now you're concerned about my well-being. I made a mistake." The words tumbled out in a rush. "Rosalind she's sweet. But Genevieve, she's not you. She doesn't understand estate management. She has no interest in the duchy's affairs. She spends her days shopping and gossiping with friends. I thought I wanted passion and laughter, but what I need is a partner. What I need is you." Genevieve stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. "You cannot be serious." "I am absolutely serious. We could still have what we planned. You could petition for an annulment from Silverton. The marriage hasn't been consummated, has it? And I could break my engagement to Rosalind. We could start again. You think I would do that to my sister? After what she did to me, you think I would stoop to her level? It wouldn't be stooping. It would be reclaiming what was rightfully yours. Genevieve, please, I was a fool. I let myself be swept up in Rosalind's charm, but it was you I should have chosen. You were made to be a duchess. And what of Rosalind? What happens to her when you cast her aside as you did me?" Nathaniel had the grace to look uncomfortable. "She'll manage. She's young, beautiful. She'll find someone else." "How magnanimous of you." Genevieve's voice dripped with sarcasm. "I'm afraid you've wasted your time, Duke. I have no interest in being your consolation prize. That's not what this is. Genevieve, Lady Silverton." A deep voice cut through the room. Lucien stood in the doorway, his presence filling the space with a dangerous energy. "My wife's title is Lady Silverton now." Nathaniel straightened, his face flushing. "Silverton, I was just leaving." Lucien's tone brooked no argument. He crossed to Genevieve's side, and she felt the warmth of his body close to hers. "My wife is quite busy settling into her new home. I'm sure you understand." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Nathaniel looked between them, something ugly crossing his features when he saw how close Lucien stood to Genevieve. "Genevieve, if he's forcing you—" "He's not forcing me to do anything," she interrupted. "Unlike some people, Lord Silverton respects my choices. Now please leave." "You're not welcome here." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. For a moment he looked like he might argue further. Then he gave a curt bow and stalked from the room. Only when the sound of his horse's hooves faded did Genevieve realize she was shaking. Lucien's hand came to rest on her shoulder, steady and warm. "Are you all right?" The audacity of that man. Her voice trembled with anger. "To think he could simply reclaim me like a lost piece of property. He's a fool." Lucien's thumb traced a small circle on her shoulder, and Genevieve felt awareness shoot through her. He had something precious and threw it away for something shiny and new. Now he realizes his mistake, but it's too late. She turned to face him, and her breath caught at the intensity in his grey eyes. He was so close she could see the darker rim around his irises, could smell his cologne, something woody and masculine. "Lucien," she whispered, not even sure what she wanted to say. His hand moved from her shoulder to cup her face. his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "If he bothers you again, tell me. I'll make sure he understands you're under my protection now. I'm not a possession to be protected." "No." His lips curved in a slight smile, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "You're far more dangerous than that, aren't you, Lady Silverton?" And then, slowly enough that she could stop him if she wanted, he lowered his head and kissed her. It wasn't the perfunctory kiss of their wedding ceremony. This was real. His lips were firm and warm against hers, moving with a skill that made her knees weak. When she gasped in surprise, he deepened the kiss, his tongue teasing the seam of her lips. Genevieve's hands came up to grip his shoulders, needing something to anchor her as the world tilted. She had been kissed before, chaste, proper kisses from Nathaniel during their engagement, but this was nothing like those. This was fire and need, and a hunger that shocked her. When Lucian finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His eyes had darkened to the color of smoke. "That was, Genevieve couldn't finish the sentence. "A mistake?" he offered, though his thumb still traced her lower lip. "I was going to say unexpected. Should I apologize?" She considered this. "Only if you're actually sorry." "I'm not." His honesty was as startling as the kiss. "I've wanted to do that since you danced with me at the Pembroke ball. You looked at me like I was a man, not a monster. Do you know how rare that is?" "You're not a monster, Lucian. Most of London would disagree." He stepped back, putting proper distance between them. "I should let you rest. Entertaining unwanted visitors must be exhausting." He was retreating again, pulling back into the formal distance they'd maintained since the wedding. Genevieve found she didn't want him to. "Lucian, wait, about Helena." His expression shuttered immediately. "What about her? What really happened? You said there was darkness inside her. What did you mean?" For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. She heard voices, saw things that weren't there. Some days she would be perfectly fine, laughing and playing the pianoforte. Other days, she wouldn't leave her room, convinced that the walls were closing in on her. "I brought in every doctor in London. They called it hysteria, melancholia, a dozen different names. Nothing helped. The night she died, she had been having a particularly bad spell, screaming about shadows chasing her. I tried to calm her, but she ran from me, out of her room, down the corridor. I chased after her, but—" His voice cracked. "She reached the top of the stairs and just stepped off, as if the floor wasn't there. I reached for her, but I was too late. She fell 3 stories. Genevieve's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God, Lucian." "The servants saw me at the top of the stairs, reaching down, saw her broken body at the bottom, and the rumors started, that I had pushed her, that I had driven her mad with cruelty, that I wanted her dead so I could marry another. But you didn't. No, I loved her in my way. Not passion, perhaps, but fondness, care. I would never have harmed her." He looked at Genevieve, his eyes haunted. "But I couldn't save her either, and that's a guilt I carry every day." Genevieve crossed to him and took his hands in hers. They were large and warm, calloused from riding and estate work. "It wasn't your fault. You did everything you could. Did I? Or did I marry a troubled girl because it was expected, trap her in a life she couldn't handle, and push her over the edge?" "No." Genevieve's voice was firm. "You gave her safety, care, medical attention. You were kind to her. Her illness wasn't your fault, and neither was her death." Lucian looked down at their joined hands. "You believe that?" "I do." He raised her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "Thank you." They stood there for a moment, hands joined, something fragile and new forming between them. Then Mrs. Blackwood knocked on the door, breaking the spell. "My lord, my lady, dinner is served." Lucian released her hands, but the warmth in his eyes remained. "Shall we, Lady Silverton?" "Yes, Lord Silverton." But as they walked to dinner, Genevieve couldn't stop thinking about the kiss, about the way her body had responded to his touch, about the heat she'd seen in his eyes. This marriage of convenience was becoming decidedly inconvenient. 3 weeks into their marriage, Genevieve woke in the middle of the night to the sound of a storm raging outside. Thunder crashed and lightning illuminated her bedroom in brief, stark flashes. She lay in bed, listening to the rain hammer against the windows when she heard it, a shout from somewhere in the manor. Lucian. She was out of bed before she could think twice, grabbing her robe and rushing into the corridor. Following the sounds, she found herself at the door to Lucian's chambers in the west wing. She'd never been here before. Another shout came from inside, pained and desperate. She pushed the door open. Lucian thrashed in his bed, tangled in sheets, his face contorted with anguish. "Helena, no, don't—" A nightmare. He was having a nightmare. Genevieve crossed to the bed and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Lucian, wake up. It's just a dream." He came awake with a gasp, his hand shooting out to grab her wrist. For a moment his eyes were wild, unseeing. Then focus returned, and he released her immediately. "Genevieve, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to—" "It's all right. You were having a nightmare." He sat up, running both hands through his hair. In the lightning's flash she saw his bare chest, the muscles defined beneath pale skin. He wore only sleep trousers, and the intimacy of the moment struck her suddenly. "I get them sometimes. During storms." His voice was rough with sleep. "She died during a storm. The thunder, the way the lightning makes shadows move. It brings it all back." Without thinking, Genevieve sat on the edge of his bed. "Tell me about her. Not her death, but her life." "Who was she?" Lucian looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he began to speak. "She loved music, could play the pianoforte for hours. She had a beautiful voice, like birdsong. On her good days, she would fill the manor with music and laughter. She loved the gardens, especially the roses. She would spend mornings out there talking to the flowers. She sounds lovely." She was, when the darkness wasn't consuming her, but it came more and more frequently as time went on. The doctors gave her laudanum, said it would calm her. I think it made things worse. He looked at Genevieve. "I failed her. I should have protected her better. You can't protect someone from what's inside their own mind. Doesn't stop the guilt." Another crash of thunder made Lucian tense. Without thinking, Genevieve reached for his hand. "You're not alone this time." His fingers intertwined with hers, and she felt the tremor in them. This strong, intimidating man was vulnerable in this moment, and she wanted to comfort him. "Stay," he said quietly. "Please. I know it's inappropriate, but I'll stay." She settled beside him, their backs against the headboard, hands still joined. They sat in silence listening to the storm until gradually Lucian's breathing evened out. Genevieve must have dozed, because she woke to find herself curled against Lucian's side, her head on his chest, his arm around her. Morning light filtered through the curtains. She should move. This was far beyond the boundaries of their arrangement, but his heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, his warmth enveloping her, and she felt safer than she had in months. Lucian stirred, and she felt his lips brush the top of her head. "Good morning. Good morning." She tilted her head back to look at him. In the soft morning light, he looked younger, less haunted. "How do you feel?" "Better than I have in 3 years." His hand traced down her spine, a touch that was both comforting and stirring something else entirely. "Thank you for staying. I couldn't leave you alone with those demons. Even though I'm the monster everyone warns you about, especially because you're not." She rose up on one elbow to look at him properly. "You're a man who loved his wife, who tried to save her, who carries guilt that isn't his to bear. There's nothing monstrous about that." Something shifted in his expression. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You're extraordinary, do you know that?" Before she could respond, he kissed her. Not the urgent, surprising kiss from the drawing room, but something slower, deeper. A kiss that spoke of growing feelings neither of them had expected. Genevieve kissed him back, her hand sliding into his dark hair. The kiss intensified, and she found herself pressed back against the pillows, Lucian's weight a welcome pressure above her. His lips traveled from her mouth to her jaw, down to her neck. She gasped at the sensation, her body arching into his. His hand skimmed along her side, and even through the fabric of her nightgown, she felt branded by his touch. "Genevieve," he murmured against her skin, "if you want me to stop, tell me now. Don't stop." What followed was nothing like she'd been taught to expect. There was no dutiful submission, no grim tolerance. Instead, there was fire and need and pleasure that made her cry out. Lucian was tender and passionate by turns, learning what made her gasp, what made her moan, bringing her to heights she'd never imagined. When it was over, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard. Lucian pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Are you all right?" "More than all right." She traced patterns on his chest. "That was unexpected?" She laughed. "We seem to make a habit of the unexpected. Perhaps that's not such a bad thing." He tilted her face up to his. "This wasn't part of our arrangement." "No?" It wasn't. Do you regret it? Genevieve considered the question honestly. She should probably regret it. This was supposed to be a practical marriage, nothing more. But lying here in Lucian's arms, feeling cherished and desired, she couldn't bring herself to regret anything. No. Do you? Not even slightly. He kissed her again. Soft and sweet. Though I suppose we should discuss what this means for our arrangement. Perhaps our arrangement needs renegotiating. A real smile crossed his face, transforming it. Perhaps it does. 6 weeks later, Genevieve was working in the Manor's library when Mrs. Blackwood announced an unexpected visitor. Lady Rosalind Pembroke, my lady. Genevieve's first instinct was to refuse to see her sister, but curiosity won out. Show her in. Rosalind entered tentatively, and Genevieve was shocked at her appearance. Her sister had always been vibrant, glowing with health and happiness, but the woman before her was pale, with dark circles under her eyes and a noticeable bulge beneath her dress. She was pregnant. Jenny, Lady Genevieve. Rosalind twisted her hands together. Thank you for seeing me. I know I have no right to ask. You don't. Why are you here? Because I'm desperate. Tears welled in Rosalind's eyes. Because you're my sister, and I don't know where else to turn. Despite her anger, Genevieve felt a pang of concern. Sit down before you fall down. Mrs. Blackwood, tea, please. Once Rosalind was settled with tea and biscuits, Genevieve studied her. How far along? 4 months. Rosalind's hand went protectively to her stomach. The wedding is in 2 weeks. You don't sound happy about that. How can I be? Rosalind's voice broke. He doesn't love me, Jenny. He never did. I was just a shiny new toy, and now that he has me, he's bored. He spends all his time with his friends, gambling and drinking. He barely speaks to me. And when he does... She touched her arm, and Genevieve saw what looked like finger bruises beneath the sleeve of her dress. Rage burned in Genevieve's chest. He hurt you? He was drunk. He didn't mean... There is no excuse. Genevieve stood, pacing. Have you told father? I can't. The wedding is arranged, the contract signed, and I'm pregnant. What choice do I have? You could break the engagement and be ruined, raise a child alone. Jenny, I made a terrible mistake, I know that now. I thought I wanted passion and excitement, but all I got was neglect and cruelty. You were right about him. You were right about everything. Genevieve felt her anger warring with sympathy. Rosalind had betrayed her, yes, but she was still her sister, and no woman deserved to be trapped with a man who hurt her. Stay here tonight. We'll figure something out. I can't impose on your hospitality after what I did. You're my sister, and you're pregnant and frightened. Whatever happened between us, I won't turn you away when you need help. Rosalind burst into tears. I'm so sorry, Jenny. I'm so sorry. I was selfish and stupid, and I ruined your life. You didn't ruin my life. Genevieve surprised herself by realizing it was true. If you hadn't done what you did, I would have married Nathaniel and spent my life as a duchess married to a man who didn't love me. Instead, I'm here, with someone who actually sees me. You love Lord Silverton. It wasn't a question, and Genevieve realized with a jolt that it was true. Somewhere between the marriage of convenience and the nights spent in each other's arms, she had fallen in love with her husband. Yes, I do. Then I'm glad. Even if I ruined everything else, at least something good came from my selfishness. Lucian returned from his business in the village to find Rosalind installed in a guest room. Genevieve explained the situation over dinner that night, watching his face carefully. She betrayed you. Why help her? Because she's my sister. And because no one deserves to be trapped with someone like Nathaniel, clearly is. Lucian reached across the table to take her hand. You have a generous heart. It's one of the many things I love about you. Genevieve's breath caught. Love, did you think I could share your bed, your life, without falling in love with you? He raised her hand to his lips. I love you, Genevieve. I think I've been falling since you agreed to dance with me at that cursed ball. I love you too. The words felt natural, right? I didn't expect to, but I do. He came around the table and pulled her to her feet, kissing her with a passion that still made her knees weak. Marry me again, properly this time, with love and promises that mean something. We're already married. Then let me court you. Let me give you the romance you deserve. I have everything I need right here. London society buzzed with gossip when Lucian and Genevieve attended the Ashford ball 3 weeks later. It was their first public appearance since the wedding, and everyone was curious about the mysterious Marchioness of Silverton. Genevieve wore a gown of deep emerald that made her eyes sparkle. Lucien was devastatingly handsome in black evening wear. They made a striking couple, and Genevieve could feel every eye in the ballroom on them. "They're all staring," she murmured to Lucien. "Let them. You're the most beautiful woman here." He pulled her onto the dance floor, holding her closer than propriety strictly allowed. They were mid-waltz when Nathaniel appeared, cutting in despite all rules of etiquette. "My dance, I believe," he said, his voice carrying an edge. Lucien's jaw tightened, but Genevieve touched his arm. "It's all right." She allowed Nathaniel to take her hand, but where Lucien's touch brought warmth, Nathaniel's felt cold. "You've been hiding away at that gloomy manor," Nathaniel said. "I was beginning to think Silverton had locked you away. I've been settling into my new home. Something you should understand, as you'll soon be doing the same with Rosalind." His expression soured. "Yes, Rosalind, tell me, does she often run to you with tales of woe? If you treated her better, she wouldn't need to. She's carrying my heir. She should be grateful I'm marrying her at all." "Grateful?" Genevieve's voice hardened. "You got her pregnant and now treat her like property. That's not something to be grateful for. She knew what she was getting into, as did you, before you threw yourself at that murderer." "Careful, Duke." Lucien's voice cut through the music. He'd been dancing nearby and had clearly heard. "That's my wife you're maligning." "Your wife?" Nathaniel's laugh was ugly. "She was mine first, or would have been if I hadn't woken up and realized what a mistake I was making." Genevieve pulled away from Nathaniel. "You're a cruel, selfish man. I thank God every day that I'm not your Duchess." She walked back to Lucien, who wrapped his arm around her waist possessively. Nathaniel's face flushed with rage. "You think you're happy with him? He's a monster. Everyone knows what he did to his first wife. You're next, Genevieve. Mark my words." Lucien moved so fast, Genevieve barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Nathaniel by the collar, lifting him to his toes. "Apologize to my wife now." "I'll do no such." Lucien's fist connected with Nathaniel's jaw with a satisfying crack. The Duke went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps and excited whispers. Lucien stood over Nathaniel, every inch the dangerous man rumors painted him to be. "If you ever speak to my wife again, if you ever come near her or threaten her in any way, I will do far more than break your nose. Am I understood?" Nathaniel glared up at him but said nothing. Two of his friends helped him to his feet and led him away. Lady Ashford approached, looking thrilled by the scandal. "Lord Silverton, I must ask you to leave." "Such violence in my ballroom." "We were just leaving." Lucien offered Genevieve his arm. "My wife finds the company here distasteful." They swept out of the ballroom with heads held high, leaving a buzz of gossip in their wake. In the carriage, Lucien examined his knuckles. "I apologize, that was probably not the dignified response you deserved." "Are you joking?" Genevieve laughed, feeling giddy. "That was magnificent. Did you see his face? You're not angry I made a scene?" "Angry? I'm considering commissioning a portrait of the moment to hang in our drawing room." She kissed him soundly. "My dangerous, protective husband. He deserved worse, calling you his, threatening you." Lucien's arm tightened around her. "You're mine, only mine." "Yes, I am." She kissed him again. "And you're mine, always." The scandal of the Ashford ball had barely died down when Nathaniel appeared at Silverton Manor, demanding to see Genevieve. Lucien intercepted him at the door, his expression thunderous. "You're not welcome here. I have legal grounds to petition for an annulment of your marriage," Nathaniel announced, waving a sheaf of papers. "On the basis of coercion and undue influence. Genevieve was in a vulnerable emotional state when she agreed to marry you. Any court would see that you're a desperate man trying to reclaim what he foolishly threw away." Lucien crossed his arms. "Get off my property. Not until I speak with Genevieve. She has a right to know her options." "Her options?" Genevieve appeared in the doorway, her voice cold. "My only option is to remain exactly where I am, married to a man I love, far away from you." "Love?" Nathaniel laughed bitterly. "He's fooled you just like he fooled Helena. Don't you see? He's manipulating you, making you dependent on him. Soon he'll start controlling every aspect of your life, and when you try to leave—" "I know what happened to Helena," Genevieve interrupted. "Lucien told me everything. She was ill, Nathaniel, mentally ill, and he tried everything to help her. Her death was a tragedy, not a murder." "You're defending him." Nathaniel stared at her as if she were a stranger. I'm offering you a way out, Genevieve. A way to reclaim your rightful place as Duchess of... I don't want to be a Duchess. I want to be Marchioness of Silverton. I want to be Lucian's wife. And I want you to leave and never come back. You'll regret this. When he shows his true colors, when he hurts you the way he hurt Helena, you'll remember this moment and wish you'd listened to me. Lucian moved then, fast and lethal. He grabbed Nathaniel by the throat and shoved him against the manor's stone wall. You have 10 seconds to get on your horse and ride away. If you ever come here again, if you ever contact my wife again, I will destroy you. I'll ruin your reputation, your finances, your precious duchy. Do you understand me? Nathaniel's face was purple, his eyes bulging. He managed a nod and Lucian released him. The Duke stumbled to his horse, coughing and gasping. This isn't over, he wheezed. Yes, Genevieve said firmly. It is. Marry Rosalind or don't, I don't care. But leave us alone. They watched Nathaniel ride away, dust clouds rising in his wake. Only when he was out of sight did Genevieve sag against Lucian. Do you think he'll actually leave us alone? If he has any sense of self-preservation. Lucian held her close. But if he doesn't, I meant what I said. I'll protect you from him, from anyone who threatens what we have. I know you will. She looked up at him. I'm not afraid of him anymore. I'm not afraid of anything, as long as I have you. You'll always have me, I swear it. 2 months later, Genevieve realized her courses were late. At first, she thought it was stress from the confrontation with Nathaniel, but when a second month passed and she woke feeling nauseated, she knew. She was pregnant. The knowledge filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She wanted this child desperately, wanted to build a family with Lucian. But she couldn't help thinking of Helena, of what pregnancy and motherhood might have meant for a woman with her affliction. Dr. Matthews confirmed what she already knew. You're about 8 weeks along, my lady. Congratulations. She waited until dinner to tell Lucian. They'd fallen into a comfortable routine of sharing meals, then retiring to whichever bedroom they felt like. They'd long since abandoned the pretense of separate quarters. I have news, she said, setting down her fork. Lucian looked up, immediately attentive. Good news or bad? I'm hoping you'll think it's good. I'm pregnant. For a moment, he simply stared at her. Then he was around the table, pulling her to her feet, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. A baby, we're having a baby. You're happy, happy. Genevieve, He pulled back to look at her, and she saw tears in his eyes. I never thought I'd have this. A family, children. After Helena, I thought I was cursed, that I'd never deserved this kind of happiness. You deserve every happiness. She touched his face. You're going to be a wonderful father, and you'll be an extraordinary mother. He kissed her, tender and reverent. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. That night, as they lay in bed, Lucian's hand on her still, flat stomach, Genevieve felt more content than she'd ever imagined possible. Her life hadn't turned out anything like she'd planned, and she was grateful for it. Rosalind came to visit 2 weeks later, and Genevieve was shocked by the change in her sister. Gone was the pale, frightened woman. Instead, Rosalind glowed with health and confidence, her pregnancy now clearly visible. I broke the engagement, she announced without preamble. I'm not marrying Nathaniel. What? How? I told father everything. The bruises, the neglect, the cruelty. At first he wanted to force the marriage anyway. Think of the scandal, think of the family honor. But mother convinced him. She said no grandchild of hers would be raised by a brute. And Nathaniel, furious, threatened legal action. But father has better lawyers. Rosalind sat down, smiling. I'm free, Jenny. For the first time in my life, I'm actually free. What will you do? I'm going to raise my child, and eventually maybe find someone who actually loves me. Not for my beauty or my family name, but for me. She reached for Genevieve's hand. I know I can never make up for what I did to you, but I'm grateful you're giving me a chance to try. You're my sister. I love you, even when I'm angry with you. Mrs. Blackwood told me you're pregnant too. Our children will be cousins, close in age. Maybe they'll be friends. Maybe they will. It wasn't forgiveness, not quite, but it was a beginning. And as Genevieve looked at her sister, she realized that Rosalind's betrayal had been the best thing that could have happened. It had freed her from a loveless match and led her to Lucian. Thank you, she said. For what? For stealing Nathaniel. If you hadn't, I never would have found Lucian. I never would have known what it feels like to be truly loved. Rosalind's eyes filled with tears. Then maybe I did something right after all. 18 months later, Genevieve stood on the balcony of Silverton Manor, her daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. Catherine Helena Ashcroft had her father's dark hair and her mother's eyes, and she was the light of both their lives. Lucian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around them both. She's finally asleep. Finally. She has your stubborn streak. And your intelligence. Thank God. He kissed Genevieve's temple. Letter from Rosalind today. She's getting married. Really? To whom? A country doctor named James Thornton. She says he's kind and patient and loves her despite everything. I'm happy for her. She deserves happiness. As do we all. Lucian took Catherine from Genevieve's arms, cradling their daughter with practiced ease. Did you ever imagine this? When you married me out of desperation? Never. I thought I was choosing a life of cold practicality. Instead, I found passion and love and a family I never dreamed of. I was the desperate one, a widower with a dark reputation, convinced I'd never find love again. And then you walked into my life and changed everything. We saved each other. Yes, we did. They stood together on the balcony as the sun set over Silverton Manor, their daughter between them, their future bright with possibility. The scandal that had brought them together was long forgotten, replaced by a love story that surprised even them. And far away in London, Nathaniel Pembroke sat alone in his townhouse, surrounded by empty bottles and fading dreams, wondering how he'd lost everything that mattered. But at Silverton Manor, in the gathering dusk, a family who'd found each other against all odds was just beginning their happily ever after.